Welcome to Tuttle Talk, a part of the Real Estate Radio Network. And now, live in studio, offering you a fresh perspective. He's your local real estate and finance expert. He's part of the Common Sense Party, and he's committed to teaching you how to win in any market. Your host, Andy Tuttle.
Good afternoon and welcome to Tuttle Talk on the Real Estate Radio Network, where we teach you what the rich and the banks do, not what they tell you to do, and where we dispel the misconceptions of financial wellness and the local real estate market and show you how following a few key principles really can free you up to focus on the other important areas of your life, like your friends, your family, and the community. It's the most important hour of radio every Sunday right here on 660 AM. The Answer, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. We want to give you good content. I want to give you good information to help you make smarter decisions, not only about your finances, but about the local real estate market, and help you have a more enriching, prosperous life. And that's why we're here every week. Happy to be with you today. Today on the show, we have Tom Kidd of Structured Foundation Repair and one of his great inspectors, Lonnie Tuttle, LT, as we affectionately call him, or Dad, as I call him, because he is my dad, here with us. I told you, and I've told you this show, that, hey, it's Texas summers. It's hot. Stuff bad happens to your foundation. We've got Tom here. He has been number one on Angie's List in Dallas, or DFW. We're going to get that from him in a minute. He is one, I think, the only company on the contractors list right now, the only foundation repair company. That's a big list. We'll talk to him about that as well. Hard to get on. And he's here because he's built a fantastic business. And I tell you all the time that I'm here to help connect you with great professionals in the area. That's why you listen to the show, so you don't have to go through all the mistakes that I made on this. You can find the good people immediately and get connected. So we're going to get with him. Tom, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's been an LT. Buddy, good to see you.
Of course.
Yes, absolutely. So appreciate your patience during the show here, but this is a very important conversation to have. So, Tom, you've been doing this for over a decade, correct?
That's right, about 13 years.
13 years. What gave you the idea to start a foundation company?
Well, I got my degree in petroleum engineering from Texas A&M, and I was in the oil business back in the 80s. And then, of course, the price of oil collapsed. The company I worked for went out of business. I needed a job, so I went and got a job in contracting, thinking it would be a short-term thing and the oil business would rebound. It really never did, and kind of evolved to where I got in foundation repair through a friend of mine and decided that it was a business I enjoyed. I get outside, using my engineering background, and so learned the business and then started my own company. Figured I could do it a little bit better than the place I was at.
Well, I think you proved that, because in the last 12 years, you've gone from, 3 employees to 150?
We're in our 11th year, and we started with 3 employees. We've got about 150 employees right now.
That's a lot of growth, and the realtors in the community love you. They trust you. Their clients trust you, and that's why you're here. And I do love you're wearing a maroon Structure Foundation shirt, so that totally explains the Aggie, yes?
Gig 'em.
Great. You got to get that in there. So talking about foundation in Texas, we have rough soil here. I don't understand all that. But what's the thing about the soil here?
Texas has clay soil, and clay is an expansive soil, meaning the volume of soil swells or shrinks depending on moisture content. So what you typically get in the summertime, it gets hot and dry, the soil dries out and it shrinks, and you get air cracks. Obviously, air is not going to support the weight of a structure, so it sinks. And once it does that, it has to be mechanically raised and supported with piers. So most of the problems in Texas are settlement as a result of the soil shrinking due to it being too dry.
Does that make it more challenging to fix because of the soil that we have here?
The fixing it is just a function of the fact that it settles.
Right.
The soil doesn't make it harder or easier to fix. It just is the reason it fails in the first place. Because foundations are designed to move a little bit or flex as the seasons change. You can visualize a pencil. You can take a pencil and bend it back and forth, and it'll flex. And then you get a little aggressive and you bend a little bit too much, and without any warning, it basically snaps. And that's what foundations do when they're flexing back and forth. It gets a little hot and dry, and it moves past what it can rebound from, and it fails and has to be mechanically raised and supported with piers.
So, because I have misconceptions about this too, but I know there's a ton of misconceptions about foundation repair. So since we're talking about what exactly is foundation repair, what do you do?
Well, as we've discussed, foundation repair can involve several things, but mostly in Texas it involves lifting foundations that have permanently settled with piers. So it involves putting piers in the ground under whatever portion of the foundation that has settled and failed, and then using hydraulic jacks on top of the piers to lift it back in place. And then once you get it lifted back in place, you set the weight of the structure on the pier because the soil is not capable of supporting it because it expands and contracts and the foundations fail. So it has to be supported with something mechanical, and that's what the pier is.
So, in that same for a slab foundation, doesn't matter?
Slab foundations are lifted with piers, and so are pier and beam foundations,
right.
Depending on the construction type. We can put piers on a pier and beam foundation if it's got a concrete perimeter beam. You know, like if you have a brick house, you have to have it sitting on something solid. That's a concrete perimeter beam.
Okay.
And, of course, there's piers underneath the house in the crawl space that support the floor, the beams, which ultimately support the floor joists. So we can put piers on both pier slabbed houses and pier and beam houses. So
then, okay, when they get to that point where you need to do that, or people get to a point where they think they need it, when do people normally come to you, and when should they come to you? Well, you should come to us when you think you might have movement that's beyond seasonal norms. And that's an inexact science. There's no, it's not going to break like the pencil. So you're just going to see some signs, you know, your typical sheetrock cracks or brick veneer cracks or maybe some doors that stick. And those are the signs that you look for that you need to get it professionally inspected. Now, you can have all of those things and not necessarily have a foundation problem, but those are the things that typically are the signs of having a foundation problem. Like the sign of having a cold is you start to have a runny nose, right, or you get a cough. Well, those are the symptoms of the fact that you got a cold. Right. So in that situation, like we see cracks in the house, which we know this stuff. Some cracks, though, don't actually mean anything, right? That's just, but everybody gets scared of cracks. My wife gets really upset at cracks. Oh, my gosh. So we actually had Dad come over and look at them, and it was like, it's nothing. But some of those, how do you know which ones are okay cracks and which ones aren't? Well, evaluating a foundation ultimately is an opinion. Right. There's no formula that you plug a bunch of numbers in and say, oh, this house needs piers and this one's okay. It's an opinion. It's very similar to going to the doctor. You go to the doctor, you got some symptoms, he takes some tests, and he gives you a medical opinion. And you might go to a different doctor and you get a totally different opinion. So foundation opinions are based on two things. When we do an inspection, the first thing we look for is all the physical clues that the house is moving. Because a rigid structure like a house that moves is going to give you some signs, the cracks and what have you. And then we take an elevation survey. That's measurements throughout the floor of the foundation, up or down. And there's guidelines for slope, what's acceptable for slope. And you basically put those two things together. If you've got measured slope that are beyond the norm, you have some stress signs, well, you can reasonably deduce that something's moved. But if I measure from here to a corner and it measures down an inch, that doesn't mean that corner sank an inch. You know, that's one of 1,000 possibilities. Right. Maybe it was built down an inch. In that case, there probably wouldn't be any cracks. Maybe it was built up an inch, so it actually is sank 2 inches to get down an inch today. Maybe the spot didn't move down, but maybe my other spot moved up because you got upward movement and downward movement. So that's why it can become very complicated. But ultimately it's an opinion-based thing. Right. And so it's another reason why you shouldn't try to inspect your foundation yourself. Exactly. There's a lot of little things that could trick you. So here's the deal. You're listening to Tuttle Talk, and we are talking with Tom Kidd and Lonnie Tuttle of Structured Foundation Repair. Tom Kidd, it's his company, Structured Foundation Repair. And one of the things that we're doing and he's doing, and it's just natural, a lot of people think it's expensive or it costs money to get an inspection. Guess what? Doesn't cost you anything. If you're in a position that you think, man, maybe I need to get this checked out, like we were, just get out your phone, text the number 72727, text 72727, and this is what you're going to type in there. It's real easy. One word, talk now. Talk now. One word, no spaces. Text that to 72727, and you will get set up for a free inspection of your home. You'll have a conversation and be able to get that going and find out if you need to get foundation repair. And it's free. And LT, that's what you do. You go in there when that happens and people go, yeah, I think I may have something wrong. I'm not sure. And I think I remember from you, Tom, that 1 in 4 actually don't need anything. And you guys are the best in the biz. I think that's probably one of the reasons you got rated number 1 Angie's List is because you tell people, guess what? You don't need anything. And Lonnie, you do that a lot, right?
Yeah, my percentage is around 35% that there's actually been no problems.
Right. So that's great to hear. And that's important for you to hear because guess what? You may not have a problem, but you need to get it checked out because if you do have a problem, the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. Is that correct? Generally speaking, the best time to fix the foundation is when you first notice the problem. As it goes on over the years, it tends to get worse. You get more up and down movement. You get more inches of plumbing leaks, more
framework problems and brick and sheet veneer, sheetrock and brick veneer. So the best time to fix is when it's first discovered.
Okay. So, Lonnie, you get the call, you go out there. What exactly, very quickly, 30, 45 seconds, what is the process you go through to assess if they need something done?
First thing you do, you begin to look for window frame separations, freeze board separations, outside cracks in the brick, just to kind of give you an idea. Is there really anything going on at all? Because a lot of times, none of that's there. You don't see those things. So then you go inside the house, you take the elevation survey measurements, and then you put all the pieces of the puzzle together like Tom was talking about and determine if anything really needs to be done or not.
Gotcha. After you put everything in there, you go, okay, this and this and this. Okay, we don't need anything, or we do. And if they do need something, you're able to let them know, hey, here's an estimated cost, and then decide what if you want to move forward, correct?
We are able to do that at the time of the inspection.
Okay, so last question for you as far as prevention goes. What are some things people can do just on a normal basis to prevent this from happening?
The way to prevent foundation problems is to maintain the moisture content of the soil around the house as consistently as possible. And that's an impossible thing because you've got the soil 100% saturated after a big rain and bone dry in the middle of the summertime. That's a huge range of moisture content. With a watering program, you kind of minimize that down to a manageable amount. And that's all you can do. So right now we have restricted watering. So you're restricted to 1, maybe 2 days a week. And that's kind of like tying a hand behind your back, trying to fight off having a foundation problem. So you might want to look at watering when you can and also putting in some soaker hoses to augment a watering program.
Okay, so basic stuff. Nothing too complicated, guys. It's just do it. If you don't have soaker hose, spend a couple of bucks, go to Home Depot, right? Get a soaker hose. Mm-hmm. It's those simple. And then just turn it on. That can save you thousands of dollars later.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah, possibly. At least prolong it until you move out of the house and get another one and give it somebody else's problem. Not that I condone that. But that's very valuable information. Here's the takeaways, guys. 1, it's free to get an inspection, and you may not have a problem. And this company will actually tell you that, not like the company that did some plumbing issue that made it a lot more issue than it was and gave me a huge problem. Don't do it with that. Do it with a company like this. Text Talk Now, one word, no spaces, to 72727. We'll get you set up with that free inspection. Tom, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Andy.
You bet. And Lonnie, of course, love you, man. Appreciate you being here as well. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this hour. That's it for Tuttle Talk. Tune in next week. We're going to talk to Chief Economist Elliot Eisenberg. He's out of D.C. He's going to tell you what to expect this year, what you'll be looking at, not just in homes, but in general in our economy. So thank you so much. Go to bootcampaign.com, get your boots on, and tell us about it. And thank you for joining Tuttle Talk, where we're making financial intelligence a priority in the community. Have a great weekend.